and they have already reached out to guess which Red Bull athlete? Wout van Aert and
Justin Williams.
Welcome back to the BTC Podcast. Jake Myers here with Aaron Myers. Going to give you a few updates on the racing this week and a few products that we've found. So, Aaron, I just kind of wanted to start off by saying, have you noticed any interesting products showing up, or bikes, or anything new?
Are you talking about the Trek situation going on?
That's what I had in mind. But
I don't know much about it. I mean, seem to be more in the know about like pro riders and less in the know about their gear than you.
Well, that's only because
there's something brewing with the new Emonda or whatever it is.
It's only because I spend every waking moment looking at it. So historically, Trek's racing bike was the Madone, named after the Col du Madone, which was, I think, Lance's favorite climb to train on. Because of how things kind of played out, I was talking to the manager of the Trek Virginia Beach store about it, and he was like, yeah, it's so weird that they ended up naming their aero bike the Madone. I don't think that was intentional. Their race bike just got more aero, and as it got more aero, they were like, oh, there's a segment opening up for a bike that's going to be just lighter. And that's where the Emonda showed up.
Where they just switched around the letters and...
Yeah. And their third bike is also just switched around. Yeah. The look of the bike was maybe like an 8 out of 10, and the creativity with the naming was like a 4. But we've already talked about BMC, so I give them the win over that. So they had this Emonda show up, the lightweight bike, and then they just kind of had these two outlets, basically depending on what kind of riding you want to do, and the pros could choose between the two models eventually. The next upgrade was making the Emonda more aero, and this happened. We're drinking beers today. This happened at the same time as Specialized came out with their Tarmac SL7, and it was like, oh, let's take our lightweight bike and make it more aerodynamic. And Specialized was so confident in their wind tunnel results that they just completely scrapped the Venge, their aero bike, whereas Trek did revamp the Emonda, made it more aero, but didn't scrap the Madone.
And it seems like a lot of pro riders still ride the Madone. I mean, not all. There are a lot that are riding the Emonda, but for certain stages and certain races, you still see a lot of Madones, it seems like. Yeah,
for sure. I was going to say that I think is starting to be a trend. And I think that kind of goes into play with this decision. That's the only interesting part of the decision. I'll talk about the more boring parts too. But originally, when that Emonda came out, most of the riders were on the Emonda for the big stage races. And then I remember the Madone you would see on the cobbled classics and some of the classics in general. The sprinters a lot of times will use the Madone. But that older Madone was a bit heavier, which I would argue doesn't matter that much. But it was a bit heavier. And it was actually a bit spongier. I wouldn't call it a spongy bike, but compared to the Emonda was incredibly stiff. The Emonda is past its 3-year development run, which Trek usually operates on like a 3-year development before they update. And not everybody, I thought there was going to be a new Emonda last year. Last year they updated the Madone, and this is where things started getting a little bit murky again. And I think this is kind of what Specialized ran into, but opposite of that. Trek redid the Madone. They had a lot of problems with basically how the seat mast and the seat post would flex for absorbing road chatter. They had this sliding unit that would adjust how much flex the bike would get, and they were terrible, to be honest. Like, they would break, especially with heavier riders. Anyways, they came out with a new Madone that's lighter, and it has that just kind of like dangling tail over this seat post or seat mast, and it absorbs some of the bumps, but it was lighter. And what started happening, the Madone was only like a pound or two. Man, I'm putting you to sleep already.
Everyone started riding the Madone.
More people started. No, this is boring. I get so excited about it, and it is not exciting.
Scientific.
So basically, it was lighter. It was getting close to the weight of the Emonda.
This is what 2/3 of our phone calls turn into.
Yeah, and rides.
Like he's doing later today.
Researching the new Emonda.
Shows how well I pay attention. I still don't know what.
Yeah, well, no one can pay attention. Yeah, but it got lighter. So there's this like trade-off. Okay, so you've got a more aerodynamic Madone that's almost as light. And weight doesn't matter as much as was originally thought. So where Specialized said, we have the tarmac that's more aero, let's just stick with that. Trek has this Madone that theoretically might be the better race bike. Cue a spy photo taken of Giulio Ciccone on a bike that looks like the outline of the Madone, but thinner tubing. The original guess was, this is going to be the new Emonda. It's just going to come out in 2025 before the Tour. Trek loves to release road bikes right before the Tour de France. I think they will release this right before the Tour de France, but I'm hearing some rumors that this is not a new Emonda and not a new Madone, but kind of like the Tarmac SL7, just one bike that's going to fit the racing category. I mean, the Madone and Emonda have gotten more and more similar over the last couple of years. The argument would be, this is like the SL7. Now that, for one, makes it a little easier on mechanics. It makes it easier for the race teams. You've got one thing you got to dial in, and you have backup bikes that, will work with any rider in any stage race, which is cool. It also makes sense from a business perspective because companies are struggling, and the big ones even are having trouble selling bikes. Worrying about trying to sell 2 race bikes and manufacture 2 different frame types just doesn't seem logical, I think, for the next year. So I think this is going to be, I would love to see it still called the Madone, but I don't think it will be. I don't think they'll remake a Madone a year after they remade it. But this, potentially, it could be a new Emonda, but I think it might be just their new race bike.
New name?
I think there might be a new name. And I think it's going to be shoot, they already have that. Minoda! It's a Minoda. You heard it here first. No, but that's what I got from our little science corner. I'm kind of excited. I worked at the Trek shop. I love Treks, and I'm really excited to see where they go with this, but I think this is going to be what everybody on that Trek team is going to be riding at the Tour. Whatever it's called.
Yeah.
So, enough of that. There's racing. We got racing again.
We got racing. Tour Down Under is almost over now. The Queen stage, I think, was today. The Wollonga stage. So there's just one more stage left.
I would name the bike the Wollonga.
So it's pretty much been dominated by Sam Welsford the whole time. He's won 3 stages.
Bora Hansgrohe sprinter, right?
Yeah. So I don't know if he's their sprinter for the year or if this is just like...
I doubt it. He's one of them. I mean...
he's Australian, so it's a hometown hero for this one. But it hasn't really been close. I think Jeremiah has been the next closest guy and never looked like he's going to win a stage.
Yeah. Can I derail you real quick? Speaking
yes.
of Bora Hansgrohe and sprinter, have you seen the news with Bora?
Are you talking about Red Bull news?
Yes, this is wild.
So all I know is they might sponsor Roglic or the whole team. Is it like a Wout van Aert situation?
Red Bull is the majority stake owner of that team now, and they have already reached out to guess which Red Bull athlete? Wout van Aert and
Justin Williams.
It got me good. Remco. Who is not technically a Red Bull, but he's Specialized. Dude, I mean...
And they're just going to do huge salaries to try to get him in, you think?
They're going to try. They're definitely going to try. Remco's going to... All right, hot take. Remco has a terrible Tour de France. He's ready to jump ship. I don't think he gets along with Wout van Aert. I don't know if he does better at Bora, but I don't think he's going to have a good Tour de France.
Wait.
Wout van Aert? No, Remco with Quickstep is going to have a terrible Tour de France and will be at Bora next year.
Interesting.
And will do even worse.
Yeah. For whatever reason, I feel like he's not a Grand Tour guy. It's just like he hasn't put together any...
He had the one Grand Tour win, but he was just barely fading. He won the Vuelta.
Not much competition, because that was the one Rogue crashed out of.
Yes, not much competition.
I can see that. But I could also see him winning like 3 classics along the way.
But Wout potentially be there too.
maybe he's holding his cyclocross form for the classics. The Wout does not seem like the same Wout that he did last year.
Yeah.
But then again, Vanderpool seems like a new Vanderpool, so maybe no one's beating him.
No, but that's an interesting point. I was thinking about that because the Worlds last year in cyclocross was like the most insane battle between those two.
Mm-hmm.
I am really hoping that it's more that Wout's not in form yet.
Yeah.
Which is possible.
Right. He got a new coach, I want to say.
Okay.
Because I think Roglic took the coach that he had at Jumbo-Visma with him.
Who was also
I'm
working with...
pretty sure he was also coaching Wout.
Interesting.
So maybe it's just a different strategy around preparing for the classics. I mean, obviously, he's done well in the classics, but he's not winning them.
But he hasn't won them. Yeah.
Anyways, I could see Remco jumping ship. But they also, like, he's
Their guy.
Undoubtedly the guy.
They're going to pay him whatever. Yeah.
But Red Bull they have a way of getting the best people. I mean, F1, you see Red Bull just going through all the best drivers and spending as much money as they need.
And you know what? Like, thinking about it, just like quickly, like, I'm talking about this excitedly, but that's what Jumbo-Visma was last year. And that was such a bummer almost. Yeah, this year, this is going to be maybe the most fun year to watch races if those top four guys perform through the season.
Yeah, I think this will be, my hot take, this will be the most exciting tour we ever watch.
I hope so.
I don't know if it'll end close, but like I don't know if we've ever seen tactics where there's four guys who are like there's always
capable of winning.
Yeah, four guys that could possibly win, and maybe three if you count
feel they should win.
And I'll say it, I'm excited to see how fast the Specialized is compared to the what's it called? Cervelo? Is that what it has?
Yeah.
Maybe Roglic is gonna pick up more time in the time trials. They already got him in the super big helmet.
The monster helmet with the sock. That's interesting. I remember hearing Lantern Rouge talk about there being some discrepancy. I want to say UAE was the team he felt was really at a disadvantage. But there was something with... I don't remember if the Specialized was faster top end than the Cervelo aerodynamically. Speaking of talking about the bike and the helmet and the entire setup, that is interesting. I don't think that Roglic can get any more aero than Remco, but
the bike itself, and
right,
yeah. Well, it makes you wonder how much of Remco's success is his CDA versus the bike. I mean, I'm sure it's both.
Yeah.
He obviously is an incredibly aerodynamic
He's a monster.
individual.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. If Roglic, I mean, his only chance of winning is to just absolutely obliterate the time trials.
I would say Remco too.
Which
is going to be interesting.
Released the course for the tour?
Yeah. Which apparently, if there was one that's going to suit Remco, I believe this one does.
I have to think. I haven't seen it, but are the time trials fairly flat?
They're fairly long, I believe.
I was going to say, I feel like the last few years it's been like time trials that are climbs, and that just suits Jonas.
Yeah.
And I feel like every other personality is a better winner for publicity than Jonas.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, I think the tour will probably do time trials that suit Remco, Roglic, Pogačar more than Jonas. So it makes sense if it's longer, flatter TTs.
Have you seen... So just thinking about CDA, did you see what Remco does with his shoulders? He takes kinesio tape and tapes them with his shoulder blades pinched so that his shoulders are rolled back. And he's like, it hurts, but every time you relax and your shoulders start stretching, the tape is pulling, so it reminds you. So he's like, if you flex your shoulders and 90-degree angle, like that's what he's doing for an hour in those time trials.
Can he just use that tape during the race?
Yes. And I was wondering, I was like, the way he described it, I was like, I don't think that's an advantage. But everybody uses kinesio tape on their, you see it coming out of the bibs and stuff like that. So, but I know a little part of me was like, But
I think there's a lot of things you could kinesio tape and maybe get an advantage from. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I think if you started dissecting the sport like that, though, it would just be like we're opening up a whole new can of worms, I think. But no, that was my first thought too. The way he described it, I was like, dude, what? I wouldn't. But I guess translating, putting it in. But I'm curious too. I'll tell you, dude. I hope you're right. I forget if I said this already. I think this tour might be the biggest letdown.
It might be.
I hope it's not.
But if any one rider gets away, there's potentially 3 riders
that'll work
that
together.
Are incentivized to work together to get them back.
That's true.
Which might make it might neutralize everything, which will keep everyone closer for longer in times. Or it might make it... I don't know. It might make it so different riders can get stage wins different days, because one day someone will get away and no one will want to work. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it'll be different tactics than we've ever seen.
Dude, well, I mean, playing off that, that gives Roglic a better chance than I would have given him originally. If people are hesitant to attack early because of potential organization behind.
Right.
Remco's sprint has gotten faster, but I don't know if anybody's beating Roglic on a mountaintop sprint.
Probably not. Yeah.
But Pogacar's got a pretty good sprint. I would say Roglic probably is stronger, but... And, I mean, Vingegaard's not slow either on the sprints. I'm just scared he's going to do his thing on, Ventoux. I don't know if they're doing Ventoux, but just ride away slowly. And even if the guys are, two of the 3 are going to be in the hurt locker, the other one's going to go off chasing, not strong enough to catch him. That's what I'm worried about. And good on him if he does. That's impressive. But, I hope that there can be organization behind it. It's just the guys are getting so good at riding at their limit now that...
The new, lactate monitor things, I don't know if they're allowed to use during races.
I don't know if they are either.
Interesting.
Yeah, definitely in training. And there's I remember Dylan Johnson was talking about how accurate or inaccurate they are would make it. I doubt many teams will use them until there's more confidence in them. But definitely the testing. Speaking of climbing though, the Willunga Hill, you were talking about the Queen stage. I derailed us for a while.
So quick overview of Tour Down Under. Welsford is winning all the sprints. Stage 2, which was supposed to be a sprint stage, there ended up being a little kicker. I don't know how big, but a little kicker 8 kilometers from the end or something. And I think it was Norway's Luke Platt and Alaphilippe for a brief second got away. And then Alaphilippe quickly got dropped from that group, which led me to think he's on bad form. Anyways, they got away. People chased back. There were a few attacks that went. And Isaac Del Toro Romero ended up going with a K to go and just staying away. I did watch the highlights of this. So it was perfect. There was 2 people who tried exactly what he did with 2 Ks to go. And he was the third. You could see it was the elastic snap, right? And everybody behind was just... Yeah. And he didn't stand up to sprint. He was in his aero hoods. Didn't stand up to sprint. Just
Phil Liggett was he's got his hands on the tops of the bars.
Oh man.
The other guy was well, that's the most aerodynamically efficient. Yeah.
Animated announcer, but I don't know how much he knows these days about bike racing.
He makes it fun. He's got that audible chocolate voice.
So I didn't realize I think UAE, he's on UAE, right?
Yes, UAE.
He's their guy. He's their GC guy they're going for here.
Okay.
And he's super young. Ended up coming top 10 on Willunga Hill, only a few seconds back, so he's still in the hunt for GC, but the Willunga Hill stage was actually pretty interesting. So it's a 3 kilometer, 7.5% climb. They do it
Okay.
twice.
Oof.
And it ends at the top of it's the summit finish. So the second time up, when they get to the top, it's the end. Strangely though, there's like 200 meters after the top. So there's like the KOM line, and then the finish line is 200 meters after that. Anyways, stage played out. Jayco got on the front. After, there was a lot of teams pulling. I think Ineos and a few other teams were pulling pretty hard. UAE were pulling pretty hard leading into the climb. Early on in the climb, Chris Harper for Jayco got on the front. Simon Yates in his wheel. And with, a K or 2 Ks to go, maybe 1.5 Ks to go, Simon Yates let Chris Harper's wheel go, which was an interesting tactic. It wasn't like he was too tired to follow,
right.
I think. But Chris Harper gets away, and Oscar Only is the only guy that can get up to him. So they're kind of the only won't pull through. So they're kind of going for a bit. Eventually the group catches up. It's whittled down at that point. Jayco tries something similar again, and Chris Harper kind of gets away again. I didn't even know this guy was a big climber. But then it's brought back together, and at this point there's 9 riders. And wouldn't you know it, Alaphilippe's one of them. I was pulling for him the whole time, and I was sure he was going to get dropped. Del Toro's up there hanging on at that point. And it becomes pretty clear it's going to come down to a sprint. So 500 meters from the end, probably maybe 400 or 500 meters from the end, pretty close to the top of the KOM point, Alaphilippe just stood up and starts sprinting and is moving, and he gets to the line for the KOM and sits down and just starts pedaling, almost for a second it looked like he thought that was the finish line. And then Onley, Stephen Williams, and Norbez just go zooming by him and gap him by 3 seconds to the finish line. Onley was the only who won the stage, and I think so. He's on DSM, who has new uniforms this year that are
and new bikes.
Maybe new bikes.
No. They're still on. They're still on the Scots.
Okay.
Which, dude, hot take, I think are hideous. People love that bike.
I thought you liked Scots.
I thought I did too. And I looked at it. Their new aero bike, the foil. Hideous, dude.
Really?
To me. It just looks like a triangle trying to be a square. That's how I would define the Scott foil. And people love it. And I'm sure it's fast. Not pretty to me.
Dang. Anyways, yeah, I was really perplexed by Alaphilippe because he looked like he had legs for a sprint. I think either he thought that the KOM point was the finish line, which could be, but I think more likely, somewhere in the recon, someone said to him, whoever gets to the KOM point first is going to win get to the line first, because it is.
And he took it the most literal.
You can see all 32 of his teeth sticking out as he's sprinting.
Oh,
he got to that KOM point first, and then pretty much just stopped. And you can almost see him just he's shaking his head, almost I knew that guy was wrong when he told me to do that.
Oh man. Well, yeah, that wraps up. I think Tour Down Under. I just wanted to end on just connecting it a little bit with domestic racing, and for more often than not, we're talking about gravel racing with that. I just wanted to get your opinion on. We're seeing gravel bikes kind of split, right? There's adventure gravel bikes and there's race gravel bikes. But at the end of last season, we started seeing more guys using hardtail mountain bikes with drop bars, or at the very least, they're gravel bikes and running the RockShox Rudy or the Fox 40 gravel suspension forks. Do you think that those are the future of gravel racing, or is it a gimmick? I mean, the bicycle industry has been known to push some expensive products
So,
just because they can.
I think my answer is yes. I don't know. I think a lot of people really like the idea of a gravel bike with a suspension fork. And you see enough, like...
I've thought about it. I've thought about it.
Pros do it, and you're like, okay, it must be faster, too. I don't know if it's faster or not. I know the fork frame has got to be so much less aerodynamic. And 30 millimeters of travel is not much at all.
Yeah.
Like, to the point of, like... It's more than a big, beefy tire, but, like... If you could get a mountain bike tire on a gravel bike, you'd probably get almost the same suspension benefit.
Yeah.
So, like, I think it's a gimmick, but I think people are doing it.
Yeah.
And I think gravel is always about the next new thing, and a lot of people doing gravel love the idea of, like, a new, like... It's just, like, people that want to be different.
Yeah,
And
that's gravel.
been, like,
Dude, that's gravel
been the,
right
like,
there.
Whole idea of the spirit of gravel, and, like, it becomes too mainstream and like people get mad and like try to do something different again. So I think 100% it's a gimmick in that, like, performance wise,
A hardtail mountain bike with drop bars is going to be faster than a gravel with a fork, right? Anytime you would...
if you need suspension, you think, you think the mountain bike has got to be faster. Maybe even without the drop bars. I don't know. Like,
yeah,
it depends if you're allowed to put aero bars on it or not.
that's true. Yeah.
But, I mean, the only argument can be made is, like, the bike you need is the bike that will be best in the moments where, like, possible separation will occur. And if, like, you can ride in a bunch and hang in the draft with your suspension fork, and then the one point where it's really chunky or a little bit quicker, like, maybe that's the better bike. But I'm just not seeing it. There's too many guys are still doing rigid forks and doing really well. I think Dylan Johnson has got a lot of stuff right, but, like, part of me thinks he's, like, just trying to be different with this, like, hardtail mountain bike thing. I don't even know, like, he says it's faster over certain sections, and on some courses I'm sure it's right, but, like, you cannot tell me that thing accelerates as fast as a gravel bike.
Yeah, that's the one thing I've thought about, for sure. And I would say that, like, both of our racing backgrounds has just been accelerate to hang on and then hang on and accelerate to hang on, whereas, like, he is very much, like, efficient, like, as far as I know. I don't know. But yeah, that's the piece that I come into is, like, acceleration. Like, I can see his argument of, like, oh, you use the mountain bike because the tire casings actually are better rolling resistance. He focuses a lot on rolling resistance, which in a 9-hour gravel race. So this is what I would ask him. At the beginning of those races, how much attacking goes on versus is it just like a whittling down? Because if it's a whittling down, I don't know what argument I could make against his setup. But, like, he talks about the cobbles, biggest race.
Big Sugar?
Cobbles. No, in France. Paris-Roubaix. Oh, man, brutal. I can't come up with that name. He says it'd be better to run, like, 45, 47 mil tire, whatever it was. Maybe. But, dude, that attacking for 2 hours covering attacks, like, that little difference in accelerations, and I think that's where you were going with that. That would be what I would bring up. Yeah, I don't know. I try to, like, if you're going uphill, you want lighter, right? So you'd want a gravel bike. If you're going downhill, you want aero.
You want aero. You want something that's, like, going to, I guess, the puncture resistance. I don't know. I just, like, when I'm on a gravel bike riding, I'm out of my saddle, using my arms, and sure, it's a little more on your legs and arms to provide that suspension, but, like, they're doing the same thing as the suspension fork would.
Yeah, does arm
right, maybe,
pump fatigue come into play, or is that just a uncomfortable?
Right, yeah. And flat roads when you're by yourself. So what was his name? Logan Casper. I think he was the guy that won on Bound XL, right?
On a mountain bike.
He had a mountain bike, but he had aero bars on it. And
Okay.
I can understand, like, if you're in aero bars, the suspension would be amazing. Because you can stay in your aero bars,
Yep.
and you can handle the bumps.
And you're not compressing that suspension because
But if you're in, like, the handlebars, like, you can do a little more with your arms to provide that suspension.
You should be, right?
Yeah.
Theoretically, they talk about Lode Bruni.
Yeah.
He's so composed. Like, the bike is moving and his torso is never, like, it's so planted.
Right,
so,
right.
yeah, okay, sure.
My argument would be, like, the fact that Dylan is bringing a drop bar mountain bike to mountain bike races shows the benefit of aerodynamics.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
why
that's
not,
why
like,
he
at
uses
a gravel race, use an even more aerodynamic bike? I mean, he used the drop bar mountain bike for Big Sugar 2 years ago. Last year he used the gravel bike.
Yeah.
I don't know if he just doesn't want to tell people that he's, like, going away from the drop bar mountain bike, but I don't think he's going to use it in any gravel race this year.
The drop bar mountain bike?
I don't think so.
Okay. Right. And did he this year? He just used the drop bar mountain bike in the mountain bike races, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So I don't see why in a gravel race you use anything but a gravel bike. And if you're using a gravel bike, use the aero frame.
Because that's why you're using it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Especially
that's well
with the clearance
said.
those bikes have now, you can fit some big tires. That tires essentially become suspension.
Yeah. I think that's what we see as a result of what he's talked about, what other people have tried. We're going to see more gravel bikes with mountain bike tires on them probably this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but no, I'm with you. Having sold bikes for a couple years, there is for sure, like I like it. I like following the development, and I think it's fun. But there's for sure gimmicks, and like that's what sales is, right?
Uh-huh.
Like you get somebody addicted. That's what sales is. You get somebody addicted, and you make sure they want the next thing. And people made really good bikes over the last 5 years, so it's kind of tough to make adjustments. There's a time and place for a gravel fork, and if you're riding for fun, you could argue like, oh yeah, like. It's more comfortable to put the fork on. But then I would just say get a hardtail mountain bike. Like that's even more comfortable.
Yeah, if you're going for an adventure ride, that would be the time when a gravel fork would make sense. But if you need a gravel fork, a mountain bike would be even more fun.
Yeah.
And hardtail mountain bikes are just as light as a gravel
Oh,
bike.
100%. 100%.
And you don't have to worry about aerodynamics with adventure rides.
Or destroying it on a descent, potentially. But the gravel bikes are tough now, too. Yeah, no, I think that's well said. And I think we have beat that point to death. But, yeah, no, if I'm on a gravel bike, I don't think I'm throwing a suspension fork on there. I think it's cool. If somebody gave me one, I would be excited about it. It'd be fun. But I agree. If in a race, I don't think it makes sense to me either. Cool. But no, I think we can wrap things up there. Just a quick race updates and a few things that are potentially on the horizon. We're going to be diving a little bit deeper into some of the new tech that came out over last year and potentially that will be coming out this year next week. But as always, thanks for listening and feel free to like or subscribe.
Sweet. See ya.